Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Tom Slivick once again with Angelo Codevilla, and Angelo's a fellow at the Claremont Institute. He's also a professor emeritus at Boston University. He's written a fabulous article. We'd look that up in our first segment, look it up on the internet, on YouTube. It's all going to be there. Right now we're going to talk a little bit about probably the two wings, if we can, of the Republican Party, conservative and the establishment wing. And how did that come about? Did we always have two wings?
Yes, the Republican Party, once upon a time, was the ruling party in this country, but it was a different country and a different kind of rule. This is, of course, prior to 1932. The Republican Party really ran the country between the Civil War and 1932. But at the time, no one thought that the government would run people's lives.
Well, I think Wilson would wanted to do
Wilson,
that, right?
Wilson wanted to do that. He was a lone Democrat and started the
progressive
the progressive movement. The Republican Party was a stranger to that, and it was only when Franklin Roosevelt took over the country in 1932, actually primarily after 1936, that he started building a big government that pretended to run the country. The Republican Party had run the country, but as I say, it was in a very different way. Because Franklin Roosevelt built the government to be that big and that powerful, it naturally pushed all those voters who didn't like that to vote Republican. Now, this was not comfortable for the Republicans. They were not accustomed to receiving the votes of the outs. They were accustomed to being the ins. Now, some Republicans adjusted quickly and well to being the representatives of the outs. These were what you might call the Taft wing, the Robert Taft wing of the Republican Party. Others did not. They continued to be the representatives of the most moneyed interests of banks, etc. This was the Rockefeller Lodge wing of the party, based in New York and Boston. Now, throughout the 1940s and 50s, more and more Republicans were elected by the votes of the outs, and yet the power of the party stayed primarily with the Rockefeller wing. In 1960, Barry Goldwater decided that this was not a good idea anymore, and asked the grassroots of the party to take over the party organization. To a certain extent, the grassroots did that. Goldwater was nominated for the presidency, but the Republican establishment objected strenuously. They kneecapped Goldwater and worse. They defeated Goldwater much more than did the Democrats, and they thought they had put down this revolt. Not so. The grassroots Republicans coalesced behind Ronald Reagan, won 2 landslide elections, but that did not end the power of the establishment class.
Right.
The establishment class came back with the Bushes and has run the party ever since. Nevertheless, the grassroots has continued to grow, and it has spawned its own network of issue organizations. Now, these issue organizations are not primarily Republican, but since they do represent the outs, they have in fact funneled their votes to the Republican Party. What we have now is a very uneasy marriage, or I should say cohabitation, between these issue organizations, which are conservatives and do represent the folks, organizations such as the Club for Growth, the National Rifle Association, above all, the pro-life organizations, the anti-tax groups, etc., the Tea Parties, of course, and the Republican Party. They vote Republican because the Republicans are the alternative, have been the Republicans, the alternative rather,
the alternative to
the Democrats,
real big government.
to the establishment. But the fact is that the Republican establishment is part of the establishment. So what is coming to be the dominant part, at least electorally, of the Republican Party is inevitably clashing with with all of the establishment, including the Republican part thereof. This is really going to be the great political battle of the coming years, not so much between Republicans and Democrats, but between establishment folks, including the Republican element thereof, and the rest of the electorate, which is largely conservative.
Okay. Now, you were at CPAC,
Yes.
which stands for Conservative Action
Political
Action Committee. Okay.
Right.
And, there was a lot of talk in the, I liked your term for the media. What is it that you call them? The legacy media?
The legacy media,
Okay. And of course, the buzz always was.
There are other words which are less flattering.
Sure. But, that's kind of cool. Legacy media, I like that, or, state, it's almost
The establishment media.
establishment media. And, of course, they were so curious, like, why isn't Chris Christie there? Why isn't he there? And I think conservatives say, well, my gosh, he's not a conservative. This is for conservatives to be here.
Well, that's right. That's right. Look, the most interesting thing about CPAC is that there were showcased there a new generation. Rand
Yes.
Paul, Marco Rubio, to some extent, and Ted Cruz, who is perhaps the brightest star of the group. Certainly intellectually, he is head and shoulders above really any politician I know. Rand Paul is no slouch. He's an MD, and he speaks, unlike most politicians, not in a declamatory way. By the way, neither does Ted Cruz. They speak in a normal manner.
Right.
They explain to people. They talk to people on the same level. Virtually all establishment politicians declaim. They stand on a podium and say, "You people, hear me. This is what is the..." No. These folks explain and reason, and that is why they are so powerful, and that is why they carry with them the consensus that can only be born of reason.
Okay. I think in your article you were saying as well that the dissidents, so there's always the dissident of the Republican Party, are more powerful today than the establishment with their ideas and with the electorate, but
that's right.
Certainly not in getting things done or accomplished
not
right
institutionally. And that cannot last. That is something which
I like that part. Maybe you can tell us, why can't it last?
Well, it can't last because there is... look, Karl Rove, who is the quintessential establishment Republican, set up a PAC, a political action committee, to fund establishment candidates. Now, within Republican primaries, any candidate who is offered money by that PAC will have to weigh the advantages of the money against the disadvantages of the label. Most Republican voters do not find the Republican leadership very tasteful. They will not vote for a candidate who they know it represents the establishment rather than themselves.
It would seem that's one of Karl Rove's...
That's why it's not sustainable.
Needs, or what it is that he would like to do, is to make sure that the people don't have money, don't have a choice, and the conservatives won't have an opportunity to run. He wants to pick the candidates for the conservative.
But it's very interesting that establishment candidates are already far, far better funded than the dissidents, and the dissidents win.
Well, I think whenever constitutionalism is spouted and people understand it, and we use that language and we talk to people like that, they like it. They like the message.
Well, that's right. People. people, especially ones who are well-schooled, who know how to reason, are receptive to.
There's our Tom Cruise fellow right there.
Yeah. Ted Cruz. Our biggest problem in this country is not a political problem, it is a cultural problem which stems from an educational problem. For the past generation, our schools have been dumbed down. Kids are not taught to reason. They're not taught facts. I don't know whether the dumbing down was intentional. I think so, but that's merely my opinion. But regardless of whether it was intentional or not, it has had a tremendous effect. As a college professor, I've seen students coming into my classes less and less able to think, less and less able to discriminate baloney from sound argument, less knowledgeable about facts. If people want to be free, they're going to have to free themselves from this terrible educational system we've got and read books. Damn it, read books.
Well, that's going to be a daunting task ahead if that's how we're going to get out of this. Well, we'll be back right after the break, and we'll talk more about the Republican Party after this. You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.